It can perhaps be said that the whole of human history on this planet Earth is a telling of one powerful story, the story of development. Human civilizations evolved and developed into thriving economic systems, first agrarian, then industrial, ever expanding on the back of accumulative growth in technological progress and know-how, which, as a corollary, supports every increasing global population. The very human needs and desires to consume, of course, grew beyond basic survival towards higher and higher standards of living, until we are today surrounded by modern contraptions and amenities. Relentless pursuit of development resembles an artifice of ever-increasing height, driven by ambitions and the spirit of ruthless competition that spares little thought to the exploitation and depletion of natural resources, nor to the ever-widening economic gaps and ensuing social discords. What we call development and progress turns out to be built on ever-weakening foundation. Dare we pause to ask ourselves, what will come of our very home, our very planet? Should we continue relentlessly on this path without thinking of the consequences to our children and the generations beyond? Mindful that humanity is at a critical juncture, the United Nations representatives came to agree on a set of 17 Sustainable Development Goals to focus the global developmental efforts over the next 15 years. Upon reflection, Thailand experienced firsthand the excruciating pain from the fallout of unsustainable economic development. Of course, we are referring to the Asian financial crisis of 1997. Looking back, it seems a blessing in disguise, for while the country was brought to the knees economically, it also rang out the much-needed wake-up call and brought forward thinkers and progressive policymakers alike to discover Thailand's hidden gem, that is, the philosophy of sufficiency economy. For the sufficiency economy philosophy, or SEP for short, not only presents us with a solution to a recovering economy, but indeed represents the requisite game-changing shift in humankind's mindset, one that will make social, economic, environmental sustainability in general, encapsulated in the 17 UN SDGs in particular, a reality. For while goal setting is necessary, it is by no means a sufficient condition for ensuring our sustainable future. For that, humanity has to make the critical transition, the major shift in perspectives and the way of life, the very pursuit of happiness, from the economics of exploitation to the economics of moderation, from the technology for dominance over nature to the technology of harmony with nature, from the pursuit of material abundance in life to the pursuit of contentment and purpose in life. The philosophy of sufficiency economy can be distilled into a set of working principles, which, to the first approximation, can be thought of as a set of criteria for good decision-making, economic policy-making, and developmental programs planning. Let's start with moderation. In the world of too much is not enough, sufficiency economy philosophy points out simply that moderation, not excess, is the key to success and genuine happiness. Moderation is not established by external constraints, namely by force of competitions or regulatory regimes. Moderation comes from within. In moderation lies the path to optimality. Not too much, not too little, but just right. When moderation guides and governs decision-making, goal-setting, and performance assessment at individual, business enterprise, national and international levels, our aspirations will be consistent with social, economic, cultural, and environmental sustainability. Next, sufficiency economy philosophy points to reasonableness, the ability and mindfulness to recognize all things by their causal factors. In fact, the Thai word for reasonableness literally comes from joining the word for cause and the word for effect together, akin to the Occidental concept of causal nexus. As such, solving a problem means extinguishing its causation, To be sure, a single problem often implies multiple causes that exist along causal chains. Here, with moderation, one recognizes our own capacity to engage. Which causal factors can we eliminate? Which links in the causal chains can we interrupt? Hence, are within our mandate or responsibility. Likewise, good intention alone isn't enough. One must recognize the multiple impacts from our actions, directly intended or otherwise. For moderation and reasonableness, sufficiency economy philosophy then calls for prudence. Here, prudence is all about resilience and immunity building. That is, much like when medical vaccination programs safeguard our bodies against diseases by making sure our bodies can recognize and have a biological defense against dangerous pathogens should they arrive. Prudence goes beyond having a sound risk management program and prepares oneself against the worst-case scenario, where even the risk management mechanisms put in place fails. But the road from sufficiency economy philosophy ideals to our genuine sustainable future is a long, treacherous one. So, when it comes to actual implementation, aside from the triple principles of moderation, reasonableness, and prudence, sufficiency economy philosophy makes requisite two conditionalities, one regarding the knowledge and one in terms of necessary virtues. With respect to knowledge, of course, knowledge and know-how is prerequisite in all endeavors. That is not the point here. The point here is to exercise due care in specializing the body of knowledge to specific context of application. That is, mere possession of knowledge is not the point. It is not enough to know, but also to know, or rather be aware, the limit of one's knowledge, or at least the limit of applicability of one's know-how in any particular social, economic, cultural, environmental context, or the proper balance between application of academic versus experiential knowledge in specific locale, and so on. Likewise, with respect to virtues, this is not just about promoting good citizenry or ethical character in general. Here we are citing rather specific virtues that will ensure sufficiency economy philosophy brings about sustainable developmental goals and inclusive, equitable growth. First on the list is honesty, the essence of character that forms the basis of personal integrity and trust. Then come discipline, responsibility, as well as forbearance, grit, and determination. For taking the high road, being on the right path, doing the right thing, takes commitment, as success is never immediate, nor without obstacles and adversaries. The good news is that these days, the force for good is growing in every sector, from agriculture to industry, business to government, public health to education, environmental protection to energy security. Progressive thinkers are coming around to the thinking and practice of sufficiency economy philosophy. Thailand's Sustainable Development Foundation thus furnishes a community forum, sort of a platform, open box, or share space for anyone and everyone with keen interest in sufficiency economy philosophy and the commitment to sustainable development to link up, share knowledge, and exchange experiences. The Foundation also supports all efforts to disseminate sufficiency economy philosophy thinking and practice in a wider circle of practitioners and policymakers alike, all in a combined effort by this generation of humanity to foster balanced, equitable, inclusive growth, as well as achieve global sustainable development in the years to come.
สวัสดีครับ Good afternoon from Bangkok, Thailand. Warm greetings everyone who are joining us via virtual platform, and welcome everyone to the virtual learning series SEP to SDG in Action, organized by the SEAMEO Regional Center for Sufficiency Economy Philosophy for Sustainability, or SEAMEO SEPS. I am Thanapon Kantavishai. You can call me Kevin for short, and I am your host for today's opening session. And today we are pleased to have everyone here with us in the first episode under the topic SEP to SDG. Before we start the session, may I inform you about the schedule today? We will start with the opening message by Ms. Duriya Amata Vivat, the Center Director of SEAMEO SEPS, followed by the panel presentation. And we are honored to have three speakers who are experienced in SEP concept, SDG in education development, and SDG in terms of school practices. So at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, may I invite Ms. Duriya Amata Vivat, the Center Director of SEAMEO SEP, to deliver a welcome message. Madam Director, the floor is yours. Please wait. So there's some technical adjustment. So while we're waiting for the Madam Director, I would like to invite everyone to share the link and invite your friend to join us in the online virtual learning platform via YouTube. So, Madam Director, are you ready? The floor is yours.
Sawadika. Good afternoon to all of you. It is my great pleasure to be here today to welcome all of you to the SEAMEO SEPS first session in our new webinar series entitled SEP-SDG in Action, Virtual Learning Series. May I begin by extending my gratitude to our three esteemed speakers who have graciously agreed to share their expertise with us today, thereby enriching our understanding of the sufficiency economy philosophy and sustainable development goals. Your insights will undoubtedly find applications in both our professional and daily lives. I would also like to welcome all those who have joined us online as participants to this webinar. Your presence and engagement truly make this endeavor worthwhile. In organizing this webinar series, the SEAMEO SEP is driven by three pillars, three clear objectives. Firstly, we aim to empower educators, practitioners, and teachers by building a profound understanding of sufficiency economy philosophy and SDGs. This concept holds immense potential for educational development and transformation in Southeast Asian countries. Secondly, we are dedicated to bringing you the latest insights from SEAMEO SEP's global and regional partners, whose expertise is invaluable in advancing education and driving change throughout the region. And lastly, we want to establish a platform which can serve as a hub for the sharing of creative ideas, innovations, and best practices related to the SDGs and SEP. These ideas can be used by policymakers, educators, education managers, and administrators to improve the quality of teaching and learning. As you participate in session 1 of this new series, we are embarking on a journey which will help build a solid understanding of SEP and its alignment to the SDGs. It will provide opportunities for you to explore the intricate connections between sufficiency economy philosophy and the SDGs, both in theory and through the real world. By highlighting successful practicing for integrating the SDGs and SEP in schools and communities, we do hope to inspire you to make meaningful changes in your surrounding. I think the best thing is for me to hand over to our expert speakers because they are expert in this area. So thank you very much for your participation and thanks once again to our speakers today. So I give the floor back to the MC. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Director, for your inspiring and warm welcome message. Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, we are given the honor by the three honorable speakers today, which will be conduct the panel presentation with us. May I just briefly introduce about three of them. First will be Dr. Priyanut. Dharmapiya. She is a senior advisor at the National Institute of Development Administration, ONIDA, from Bangkok, Thailand. And the second one, Ms. Margarete, Sachs-Israel. She is from the UNESCO Multisector Regional Office in Bangkok. And the third one, Mr. Ilan Enverga, from ISB International School from the Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go to the session, may I invite everyone to send the question by scanning or the QR code, or you can find the link posted in the YouTube description box, or you can click the link on the top of the YouTube chat box. All right, I think everyone is now getting ready and exciting for our session. So before we start, once again, I would like to introduce my lovely colleague. She will be our moderator today. She's Abigail Lucena. She's a program officer from SEAMEO SEPS. She's now with us on the screen. Oh, welcome, Abigail. And yeah, you're ready. Are you ready, right? Okay, so I turn the floor to our MC, our moderator today. Abigail, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hello from Bangkok, Thailand. My name is Abigail Lucena, and I'll be moderating today's session. I welcome you all to the first episode of the SEP-SDGs in Action virtual learning series. This series of webinars is brought to you by the SEAMEO Regional Center for Sufficiency Economy for Sustainability, or the SEAMEO SEPS. Today, we start with the first episode called Sufficiency Economy Philosophy to Sustainable Development Goals. Sufficiency Economy Philosophy, or SEP, Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. SEP to SDGs. In today's session, we will learn about three things. Number one, the concepts of SEP and the SDGs. Second, the connection of these two, both in theory and in practice. And third, successful practices on SDGs and integration of SEP in school and community. I'm very honored to present our three speakers today. First, Dr. Priyanut Dharmapiya. Dr. Priyanut is affiliated with the Sustainable Development and Sufficiency Economy Studies Center, National Institute of Development Administration, Bangkok, Thailand. She was the executive director of the center between 2019 and 2011, and she continued on to serve the institute as a researcher and a senior advisor up until now. Dr. Priyanut also serves as chairperson of the governing board of SEAMEO SEPS. I would refer to Dr. Priyanut as probably the greatest scholar and thinker on sufficiency economy philosophy. Second, ladies and gentlemen, is Ms. Margarete Sachs-Israel. Margarete is the chief of the Inclusive Quality Education UNESCO Multisector Regional Office, Bangkok, Thailand. Margarete is a seasoned specialist in international education and development, having worked with both UNICEF and UNESCO, and having served as UNESCO focal point for the development of the UN Agenda 2030. I would probably regard Margarete as a truly SDG champion, particularly of SDG 4. And third, Mr. Ilan Enverga. Ilan is the Director for Administration and Student Affairs of the International School for Better Beginnings, Lucena City, Philippines. For quite some time, and I suppose even up to now, Ilan has become a favorite youth representative in many international gatherings organized by UNESCO and the UN. Ilan is part of the SDG 4 Youth Network and leads a working group. Now imagine an SDG youth champ becoming an important participant in school leadership. That's like picking the moon from the sky. With a set of valued speakers, our session today is indeed special. And for this session, each speaker will be speaking for 15 minutes. And please forgive me if I have to kindly remind our speakers of the time. After which, after all the three speakers, we will entertain questions from our global audience. We better get started then. Ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker, Dr. Priyanut. The time is yours, Ka-Ajan.
Thank you, Abigail. I'll share my screen. Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen now. Okay, thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Director Dr. Duriya, for get this series, put into actions as well. This is remarkable for the SEPS Center, and I would like to congratulate the director and the team to make this happen. I know Abigail kindly give me 15 minutes, so I'll go through my prepared presentation. Today I'm gonna talk about. I'm not quite sure whether the audience had entered the room earlier to be able to watch the video clips that our MC has put earlier before introducing the lecturers today. But if you please kindly enough to put the link in the chat box, so someone who came later can see, or maybe put it somewhere at the YouTube chat box. I think that was a good explanation for SEPs, because today I won't focus much on SEP, but to show you how Thailand is applying SEP as is compass for along the road to sustainable development. In the video clip, it has been explained very well that the past development of Thailand, has been imbalanced. We have faced economic crisis like, the Tom Yam Goong crisis, or the social crisis, and disparities, inequality, many issues, coming to Thailand. And in the year 1997, the late His Majesty King Bhumibol has bestowed, or given us, bestowed his idea on sufficiency economic philosophy. And after that, Thailand, especially the government, and also private sector, and of course the educational sector, has adopted SEP as its strategy, or a compass to move along the road to achieve sustainable development. And that's the story that I will talk to you today. It's just been for about 20 years now that His Majesty has bestowed this SEP, SEP, right? I just would like to remind you that it just doesn't come from just his thinking, but it's based on his experiences on development work that he has been traveling throughout Thailand, and see what will be the good thinking or framework for Thai society. But later on, His Majesty also mentioned that these can be applicable to the whole world as well, not just to the Thailand. So just to remind all of us, again, that this coming from His Majesty development work experiences, throughout his lifelong work, so that we know that this is not coming from the, ivory tower or something. People mention a lot about SEP, its, structures. I just would like to put in a very simplified, model that people can remember when we talk about SEP. I think, the way I train teachers, to get SEP integrated into their learning lessons, or it put into learning activities in school. I said, just remember 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. What is 2? 2 conditions. Whatever we do, it's just, we know that we need knowledge, but not only knowledge. Knowledge is not enough. We need compass. We need a moral compass to guide that knowledge towards, the end or the goal that we would like to achieve, because just only knowledge, it may not bring us to the goal that we would like to achieve. So always virtues has to be a guidance for application of knowledge. We call this, a quality conditions. And three are moderation, reasonableness, and prudence. I will explain later because, it has been explained in the video clip already. But this is what we call sufficiency principles. 3 sufficiency principles. I will go to this later. And 4 are the outcome. When we talk about sustainable development, we always talk about economy, society, environment, that we have to, create a balanced development among these 3 bottom, triple bottom line, right? But for sufficiency economy philosophy, or in Thailand, we are using 4 balancing goals. We have culture integrated in our development balance goals as well, because, the more we develop, not just the economy or society and environment that we should cherish, but we have to cherish the culture that has been inherited, from our ancestor, and we have to transfer it, to the next generation too. So culture is quite an important dimensions in balanced development based on SEP. Okay, so showing this, so we know that the goal of SEP is aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals, right? We know that, the triple bottom line of SDGs, comprise of biosphere, society, and economy. And as I mentioned, for SEP, we have culture, to put it explicitly. Many experts may say that, in the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the cultural dimensions has been integrated in many, goals. But for SEP in Thailand, we bring culture, to be explicit, similar to economy, society, and environment. And I will show you the example later. Okay, maybe we should just ask ourselves why these 4 dimensions are important. So this is the heart of the Sustainable Development Goals. I mean, think about when we progress with material things, right? We would like to have that assets or that capital, materials capital, either money or assets or, whatever, computer, technology, whatever, we want to have it to be utilized, this capital, the material capital for a long time, right? Well, that's, we measure with GDP, the gross domestic, production, many growth, something like that. We measure with that. But humans' life, especially we are under this, SEAMEO and under UNESCO, we see a holistic view of human, that our life is not just really about materials, progress only, but we need to care others in society. We live with others. In our small family, we have fathers, mother, relatives, brothers, sisters, right, nephew, niece, and also others in our community and society. Scholars said that this is what we call a social capital. I mean, think about in many actions in our lives, we always use this capital, right? Get connection, get networking, and the knowledge, the experiences, and, the good feelings, the supportive, encouragement, heart, this is very important for human being, just to be the materialistic society. We need to care and share with others in society too. That's why society dimension is very important in creating a sustainable development as well. The third one, natural environment. I won't talk much about this. People all knows about this. We are talking about climate change, climate action. We care about biodiversity, the ocean. Now we talk about ocean garbage, plastic in ocean. So we know the importance of natural environment. The last thing that I would like to emphasize is the cultural or heritage, capital that has been passing to us. It's not just really the culture, the local wisdom, right? The art, the way we eat, all this, food, local food, all of these are heritage of music, right? Or like, in Thailand, we have like Thai silk, all of these are the things that when we are coming to this world, our ancestor has, been developing and created and accumulating for us. So we also have these duties to pass over this heritage, this, cultural to our next generations. So I say this is the interconnectedness, of these 4 dimensions. Is very important that we have to think that we should progress with balance and resilience with 4 dimensions. That is a SEP idea to achieve sustainable development. Okay. Well, the 3 principles of SEP, you heard, maybe you hear it several times in moderation, not too much, not too less. It's coming from within. How much noodles should I have for my lunch? One may say 2, one may say 1, one may say maybe 3, it depends. It depends on each person's conditions. It depends on each community's conditions. But we say that it should be within our means, whatever we do. It has to be suitable with the local conditions. We use appropriate technology for any, progress. That's moderation, because resources are limited, so we should not, consume more than we need. Reasonableness is about, thinking about the cause and effect. Think all the time. If I do this, what's going to happen, from my actions? So this is to make people think that all actions has the results, and interactions. So be careful when we make any decisions or, action, because if you have a repercussion or interactions, coming back to us. And the last one, this is what the people use all the time, resilience. When we hit the crisis or, challenges, how can we deal with the crisis and coming back strong as before? This is a very important concept for sustainable development, being resilient. I have to rush up. So how to apply this? Okay, everything is about the mindset. First of all, before we do anything, what kind of knowledge should we know? Virtues, we should have it inherited in our actions, in our decisions, not to create harm or, try to create benefits to the society, to our family, something like that. We apply these 3 principles and we try to project the ends or the goals or the results of our actions to be balancing in 4 dimensions. Okay. In the year 2006, when the former U.S. Secretary General, Mr. Kofi Annan, has presented the first Human Development Lifetime Achievement Award to our king, at the time, so Thailand has adopted SEP, into many layers of development in the country, in the national plan, in the private sector, in local communities, and in educational sector that I will talk about it today. For educational sector, how we integrated SEP into the curriculum is that we set up something like, sufficiency living goals. This is similar to, the goal SDG 4.7, which is sustainable lifestyles. But to be able to have the sustainable lifestyles, we need a mindset. And in Thailand, we said we have to cultivate the sufficiency mindset to students through learning activities, through, the whole school approach, create sustainable culture in school based on SEP. This is what we did in Thailand. And now I can say that 3/4 of all schools in Thailand are certified as SEP school. Okay, so that's the I think it's remarkable for Thailand to do that. And how we do that, just briefly explain that in school management, the principal has, integrate SEP to provide, an enable environment for teachers and students, to conduct the sufficiency learning activities, students integrated into their learning activities, teachers integrate SEP into their curriculum. We teach SEP as a subject and also integrate SEP principles 2, 3, 4 into all subjects. I wanted to show just one subject, this is for grade 2 and grade 3 in Thailand. Because our country is facing with personnel indebtedness. The personnel debt is quite high right now, especially after the crisis. But long before, we need to train our new generation, our children, and actually all Thai people to have financial literacy. So how we do that based on SEP? Okay. For grade 2 and grade 3, they have to start to record and analyze their income and spending. You see, so they have their own, income and expense sheets that they have to fill out, every day and show it, to teachers and learning from that. But not just only to put the number in there. They have to think. This is how we, cultivate the sufficient mindset, right? For example, when they buy something, they have to think into, is this necessary or this is their want or need? Is this a desire? If you're going to buy one ice cream, is this necessity or desire? Just to practice with analytical thinking, to observe oneself all the time. Is this what I really need? Or should I keep this money to buy a new pencil or, a new pen or something like that? Moderation is that they need to know how much that they get every day. And also for grade 3, they have to do, a balance sheet or keep contract of their families, income and expense too. Students are encouraged to know their financial situation of the family so that they can think about to live, moderately with their financial situations of the family. Students are encouraged to do saving. Of course, in Thailand, there are many families that cannot save the money, but they can do something else, For example, saving the goodness, saving there are many activities doing that. But to cultivate the saving mindset, to the being prudent, be prepared for the futures that they may need some of the savings, something like that. This is how to cultivate the mindset, right? The prudent mindset. Okay, so they apply knowledge when they buy things, can they buy this, cheaper from other place, or should they, buy something else, something like that. And to do this, sheet, for putting this sheet, and honestly, we are building a collector of discipline, honesty, diligent. So this is something that we do in Thailand, to cultivate. Just one example. We have a lot of examples, right? I'll go fast on this. Okay. So you can see that, 4 dimensions and dimensions are integrated, into students' activities. So for responsible consumption, in terms of, material, eat moderately, they do this, garbage, cleaning, recycle. Students learn how to be disciplined, work as a teamwork, from their childhood, from grade, they learn in the environment, collected garbage, and, learning about the local culture and the national culture. I think I should just leave here because it turns to my time, but I'm willing to share later if any of the audience have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Priyanut. Thank you very much, Dr. Priyanut. Thank you very much for the valuable presentation. A lot of things could be said and could be taken from Dr. Priyanut's presentation, but probably very briefly, we saw how the philosophy came about. We saw that it was popularized when the economic crisis in Thailand, actually in Asia in 1997 happened. We all experienced that. On the education aspect, I'm very excited to just cite probably three things as important takeaway from Ajahn Priyanut's presentation. SEP, friends, global audience, is a mindset. And according to Dr. Priyanut, our mindset is shaped by our views of life and the world. And I like the fact that specific examples of how SEP could be taken in a specific class or lesson is in decision making. She presented a financial literacy example of a spreadsheet, which is very realistic and practical. So financial literacy, analysis of things, and decision making. Let's hold on to these specific examples of how SEP is taken in the context of a classroom. Thank you, Ka Ajahn. As we take those takeaway messages, friends, I would like us to remember how we connect to the second topic. And for the second presentation, we will hear from no less than the SDG expert herself, Margarete. The time is yours, please.
Good afternoon. I'd like to start by, first of all, thanking SEP and Dr. Doria for the invitation to present at this webinar. I think it's a great honor and a pleasure, and I hope that my presentation will be of interest. So what I'll be doing, as you showed in your slide, is to start by presenting the SDGs, then focusing on SDG 4 and 4.7, and trying to make a link to SEP and to the brilliant presentation that we just heard. So next slide, please. So I think we also have to remember where we're coming from. Today, we are presented with more challenges than ever. I think this photograph presents them well. They are threats such as rising extreme poverty around the world, in Asia Pacific as well, including in countries that are well off. Of course, everybody knows about the climate change and environmental depletion, which is really a major threat to humanity and to the world, natural disasters that ensue from that, pandemics, we just came out of one, and then the rapid technology change that also, of course, impacts the way we live and we live together, and rising conflicts. So all of these affect vulnerable populations more than others. And as a consequence, we have to really, our societies have to not only reflect, but also be able to anticipate and respond to these situations. So in this sense, the SDGs and what the SDGs have been trying to do when they were conceived has become even more important than ever. So let's go to the next slide. So here, I want to give you just a quick overview of all of the SDGs. No, can we just keep that slide? As you know, they were developed through a long process of consultations between all member states. I think it's important to note that the Sustainable Development Goals are true for all countries, for developed and developing countries, which is something that is different from the MDGs. And every single country is responsible for their implementation. They actually look at 3 dimensions of development, that is economic, social, and environmental. And here already you can see that there is a clear link with what was presented just now on the SEPs. And what is also important to note, and this can be seen also in the slide that is in front of us now, is that all of these 17 SDGs are very strongly interconnected. We say that they have to be implemented together, so we cannot just focus on one of them or 2 of them, but we have to see them in a holistic manner to ensure that actually sustainable development can be brought about by the world community. So of course, every single government is responsible, but all the partners of governments are responsible every single day to bring about this development. What we can see here is the SDGs were conceived with what is called the 5 Ps. The first one being about people. So here you have SDG 1 about poverty, then you have ending hunger, then number 3 is about health, 4 very importantly about education, etc. So if you want to achieve all of these about people, as I said before, the others have to be also contributing to their contribution, as I said. Next one, please. Now I'd like to zoom in on SDG 4, the education goal, as you all know, which is also quite different from what we had before, because on the one hand, it is very holistic. It really looks at all levels of education, and it looks importantly at learning, meaning it's not just about access education or to education anymore, but it's really achieving learning and very much looking at learning in a lifelong learning perspective. It also has the very important target that was mentioned by the speaker before me, and that is 4.7, which I'll get into the next slide more in detail, but it's about really looking at the content of education and ensuring that it provides the knowledge, the values, and the skills for sustainable development. This, of course, again, also within SDG 4, all of the different targets are interlinked. Obviously, access to education has to be ensured, teachers have to be trained, the quality of education has to be ensured so that everybody actually achieves the kinds of learning outcomes that are expected. We also ensure that there are skills for employment and entrepreneurship that are guaranteed in higher education, eliminating gender disparities and having equal access, meaning the whole focus on inclusiveness and equity is very important. And then also looking at issues of youth and adults that might not have literacy or any kind of skills for further learning. So that is a little bit the overview of SDG 4, which, as I said before, applies to all countries. It's a universal goal. Next one. So what I'd like to show here is the SDG 4.7, which actually focuses on education for sustainable development and global citizenship education. So in that sense, SDG 4.7 focuses on the knowledge and skills that are needed to promote sustainable development, and in particular through education in that sense. And that means also sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace and non-violence, global citizenship, and the appreciation of cultural diversity and of culture's contribution to sustainable development. I'd like to refer to something that was said earlier also. Culture is in the SDGs and also in SDG 4.7 is integrated. It is not a standalone goal, but it was recognized in the discussions with the member states when this was designed, that culture has a very important role to play in contribution in making sustainable development becoming true. And so therefore you'll find it throughout the goals. So in that sense, it's also very much present in 4.7. Now, what you see here is that we really believe that 4.7 and therefore education for sustainable development and global citizenship education has a very important role to play to transform education. And that is also because ESD and GSCDE, in short, education for sustainable development and global citizenship education, are transformative approaches to education, and they support very much the realization of SDG 4 as such. And they take a very humanistic approach, a moral approach, and talk about values of education. So that's very important, and again makes the linkages to the SEP philosophy. But at the same time, education can only be transformative if the learner himself feels valued and acknowledged and safe and is included in a learning community. So that means it's not only the individual that is required to transform, but it's also the community that has to work together with a learner to ensure that he is valued and supported, but also contributes to the transformation that is required. The transformation also has to be included in the curriculum. It has to go beyond simple knowledge, but it's a knowledge, again, related strongly to SEP, that actually helps to transform, and that is based on morals and on values. That, of course, when we start with curriculum, when we talk about curriculum, we also have to talk about the pedagogical approaches through which the curriculum is then taught to the learner. That has to be clearly aligned, and the same then goes for the assessment and the learning material. So the whole is a very comprehensive approach that has to ensure that within all of these components of teaching and learning, there is a transformative approach, which then helps the learner to transform and become this human being that is able to ensure sustainable development. Next one, please. So I don't think I have to speak about that slide a lot. It was actually the presentation that we just had spoke about SEPs, so I think we can skip that. Next one, please. So what I want to move on now from explaining on SDGs, SDG 4 and SDG 4.7 is to talk a little bit about the latest developments and a rethinking of education. So as you might know, UNESCO published in 2021 a major report which is called Reimagining Our Futures Together, or the Futures for Education report, which was published as a response to all the different challenges that I mentioned at the beginning, and therefore calls for a reimagining education systems and transformative education. And it also says that education systems right now are not fit for purpose, but they have to be rethought in order to become fit for purpose again and relevant to face shared global challenges. In that sense, it puts very much education for sustainable development and global citizenship education, meaning all the contents of 4.7 at the core of getting there. This concept was then very much drawn on in the discussions of the Transforming Education Summit, TESS, which was convened by the United Nations Secretary General in September 2022. And the Secretary General also, at the end of the summit, launched his vision statement, in which he refers to the report and calls upon countries and their partners and the global community as such to rethink the purpose and the content and the delivery of education in the 21st century, and also therefore really thinking about completely new education systems. So I think this is actually a very big and ambitious ask to really rethink completely how education should look like. This is something all of us are still working on, and it's very important to have concepts like SEP that can help in what direction education should develop, because SEP is clearly a very good example. It's a very good practice of how education could develop to be rethought and to become fit for purpose, given the different challenges we are focusing, and to becoming a truly humanistic education. Next one. Yeah, I'd also like to mention another major action that happened during TESS, Various calls for actions were held, out of which global initiatives were born, one of which is the Greening Education Partnership. So this Greening Education Partnership is spearheaded by UNESCO, and it really, of course, is born out of the current issue and challenge of climate change, and therefore aims to inspire and support countries to undertake immediate action, but very much focusing on learning, meaning working with learners so that they do have the skills and the values required to ensure that we can transit towards digital and greening economies. So there are 4 pillars of the Greening Education Partnerships, which are greening schools, greening curriculum, greening teacher training and education systems capacities, and greening communities. So this, as I said, is a partnership, and we hope that countries will join them. Next one. So I'd like to now also point to something else which directly links SEP to SDG 4.7, and that is an SDG 2030 action that is calling upon countries to develop ESD country initiatives. And here countries are called upon to mainstream ESDs into their efforts to pursuing sustainable development, everything we talked about before. So here we're talking about 5 action areas. First is policy, then transforming learning environments, building capacities of educators, empowering youth, and accelerating local level actions. So we don't want to build something completely new, but to build on existing actions on ESD and integrate that into existing national frameworks for the SDGs, especially SDG 4. Here, the link between SEP and the country initiatives is clearly on transforming learning environments, but also very much looking at building capacities of educators and local level actions. Next one. So this is my last slide, where I'd like to point out a little bit more how the principles of SEP can be applied for SDG 4.7 and education transformation at school level. So on the left-hand side, you have the principles of SEP, which is, for example, the first one, creating a sense of self-awareness through knowledge and experience. So in terms of education transformation, countries are called upon, and the principle that is applied is to work with teachers, students, and diverse community groups to harness local and indigenous knowledge and accelerate community level actions and solidarity to respond to climate change, facilitate sustainable development and peace building, meaning that education transformation is recognized has to obviously take place at the local level, at the school level, at the community level. Now, in terms of building resilience or self-immunity against future risk and changes, that of course is very much of the heart of education transformation, because it talks a lot about supporting any kind of learning that empowers and mobilizes young people to do what? To ensure that they are ready for all the changes that is happening around them and that impacts them, but that at the same time they can influence and they can impact through their moral, their values, their attitudes, and their very concrete action. So with that, I'm ending my presentation. I think my time is up, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Margaret. That is very comprehensive. Friends, global audience, the presentation showed us the interplay between sufficiency economy philosophy and SDG 4. Margaret particularly focused on applying the principles of SEP for SDG 4.7 and the needed education transformation at the school level. Very much appreciated, Margaret. Thank you also for sharing with us the development of the so-called reimagining education efforts at the global level, including the importance of transformative education. You mentioned to face shared global challenges. And thus, it brings us to the revival of the global citizenship education, education for sustainable development. Hey, global audience, remember these two things. It will eventually connect to the SEP philosophy. Thank you again, Margaret. Friends, for the third presentation, please join me in welcoming our SDG Youth Champion turned school and community leader, Ilan. Ilan and friends, take it away. The time is yours.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Again, my name is Ilan Enverga, and I first wanted to express my gratitude for this opportunity. So thank you again for passing the floor, Abigail, and to Director Duria and the entire team of SEAMEO SEPS. I think the way this session or this episode was organized, I think was very smart, very thoughtful, and we started off learning more about what SEPS was and seeing the connection to the SDGs, which should be obvious by now. But the harder question is how we can see that realized in an actual school setting. So we don't just want to see these ideas as ideas. We want to see them as reality in our own classrooms and in our own learning communities. So I think a lot of what we heard from our previous presenters, Dr. Priyanut and Ms. Margarete, will definitely lend so well into what I'm happy and honored to present with you today. And that is our real practices here at our school, International School for Better Beginnings, or ISBB, in Lucena City, Philippines, where we actually have found a program that has made these ideas into reality. And I'll explain more shortly about it. So first things first, I think when we see the connection between our program and SEPS, it was very clear to see the connections, not only because of how close, our program was initially designed to sort of show and give opportunities for students to practice actions for the SDGs. But as we can see the connection between SEP and SDGs, it's also very, very clear the connection between SEP and our program here at ISBB. And I think this will become more apparent shortly. So similar to Ms. Margarete, I have a few images here that sort of set the tone for what the state of the world is and how there's so many crises that humanity is dealing with. And we're sort of at this point where we have choices to make, and those choices will define what happens for the rest of time. So when it comes to the climate crisis, or increasing inequalities or conflicts, corruption in our governments, or any of these sort of types of social problems, it's important to know how the world is at the moment so that we can reframe or transform education to tackle these larger issues. And it's also important to mention that we're coming into September, and we're coming into Global Week, or Global Goals Week, where the SDGs are really going to be the highlight, as well as timely with the UN General Assembly happening in New York. But connecting the dots with education and the SDGs, it's important for us to realize that schools shouldn't just be teaching what is SEP or what are the SDGs, because awareness is not enough, right? Being able to identify what SDG 6 is not as good as being able to practice that in daily life. So schools need to do more than just teach awareness, but to actually develop human beings who are more kind, more aware, more empathetic, more practiced, more skilled, and more motivated to actually make real positive change in the community or in the world. Before I sort of really go into detail about what exactly our program looks like, and that, you know, the concrete examples will make things extremely clear what we do here at our school, I wanted to take one last two slides to mention why we designed the program the way it is. So first, I wanted to show this slide from a recent report called What Young People Want. It was a massive survey conducted with people all over the world, ages 10 to 24 years old. Actually, just this month, in this month of August 2023. And what they said was very clear. So young people are demanding that they be given education and skills for a better future. Very, very similarly, earlier we heard Ms. Margaret talk about the UN Transforming Education Summit held last September at the UN headquarters. And we also heard about the vision statement that was presented by the Secretary General. And I wanted to make sure that I use this platform to also discuss, you know, what young people want. And young people are saying through this milestone document, this historic document called the Youth Declaration on Transforming Education, young people are saying that they need future-proof skills, they need education for sustainable development, they need to be able to know how to deal with the problems that they are going to inherit in the future. And this document was you know, a summary of inputs from almost 500,000 young people from over 170 countries. And it's, you know, it's a proud moment for me to say that we as part of the SDG for Youth and Student Network were able to present this document to the Secretary General himself at the Transforming Education Summit. And this document then led to his vision statement that was presented to all presidents and ministers of the world. So in a nutshell, we need to see how the world is, you know, as it is. And we need to hear from the young people, from students, from, you know, from other youth, what they need out of education. So that we can actually build an education system that is more relevant and also more equitable. So I'm now very, very honored to present what this led to. So a few years ago, we designed and implemented this education program at ISBB, or International School for Better Beginnings here in Lucena City. And essentially the vision is a simple vision. The vision is that every single young person will grow up to be a change maker, someone who makes positive change in the world, all oriented towards the SDGs. So as you can see on the slide, there are pictures of our students and how, you know, you can kind of get a little bit of a taste of how we're giving them these real life opportunities to practice change making for the SDGs. An overview that we can mention about this program is that it really focuses on operationalizing or really making a concrete experience out of certain mindsets and values and philosophies that we believe will change the world, right? And I hope you can hear the connections between SEP and our program. So at the heart of our program, it's really a values. It's a values education system or a values education program. But what we learned in past, you know, decades is that the values education may not be working as effectively as it should be. And the reason for us that we realized is because we're not able to give young people practice. We're not able to make it a real world experience for them. They are just reading these things out of a textbook or hearing it from their teacher, but they're not able to practice it. So this is what led to our education program that we entitled Youth for Better. It really, you know, is proud to be a whole school approach because from K to 12, so preschool all the way until grade 12, that's what we call it here in the Philippines, each grade level uses their academic curriculum contextualized in social issues to empower young people to practice change making out in the real world. And on this slide, you can see the social issues that are covered all throughout their journey through K-12. What strengthens the teachers' teaching, the curriculum, and the core of a school is always the teacher in the classroom. What strengthens their work are the structures that we built around them. So even our events, even our extracurricular activities are still aligned with this idea that we need to develop young people to be change makers, to make our world a better place. So a few examples are on this slide. As I flash through the next slides, these are some of the pictures, examples of what our students have done in the past few years, covering a multitude of social issues, all sort of connecting to all of their academic subject areas, whether math, English, science, other language subjects, technical or livelihood education, and so on. But again, when I received this opportunity, I knew that this was our chance to show what a real school is doing in Southeast Asia, and how maybe this example will help other schools or other education systems, take that step towards implementing ESD or GCED. And so when I was given this opportunity, I thought the best people to talk about it, besides myself, are the students and the teachers themselves, because the way we see our program is a ripple effect. The way we give capacity or the way we train our teachers will then lead to the way that they teach their lessons to students in the classroom, which will then empower these students to practice making positive change out in the real community. So as you can see on the slide, this is sort of our flow. And it's my honor to introduce our very own teachers and students from our school, ISBB. And they are joined here at this event. I'm so happy to introduce them. Our first person on the panel from ISBB is teacher Sheena, and she is she's a mathematics teacher as well as the chair of our academic council. So she actually helps also train the teachers and make sure that we are following this SDG oriented or SDG centered way of school practices. So without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to teacher Sheena.
Good day, everyone. I am teacher Sheena, one of the teachers from International School for Better Beginnings, handling the grade 5 campaign entitled Climate Change Ambassadors, which targets the SDG 13 climate action. As a math teacher, it was a big challenge for me at the start to incorporate our campaign into mathematics, considering the fact that the climate change is more easily associated with the fields of science and values education. However, as time went on, I learned how to connect them through mathematical problems across different topics that I discuss, whether through formative or summative assessment. I always make sure that I include situations where they have to think critically. At the same time, I make sure that they are able to solve those problems on their own. Here are the examples of some questions that I presented with them. So one of those is this one. It's all about operations of fractions. The climate change ambassadors started cleaning up the rivers that flow through the city. If Aquamarine Group was able to collect 24.5 pounds of garbage, Cornelian Group with 21.1 pounds, and the Jasper Group with 23.16 pounds, how many pounds of garbage did they collect in all? If there are approximately 70 pounds of garbage, were they be able to finish collecting them all? Why or why not? So it is just one of the problems that I presented with the grade 5. Next slide, please. Okay, so this one is all about the decimals. particularly with the operation of this. Also, the next slide. Okay, so this one is also about operations of this. And then the last slide is actually one of my examination for the third quarter last year. Okay, so aside from everything that's mentioned, we also have activities that involve collaboration with different subjects, such as doing research about climate change connected to math and science, factors that affect climate change, including on human health, and communicating ways they can help to solve climate change, even in the simplest ways. That's all for my part. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Teacher Sheena. And that was one concrete example, again, of one lesson or one topic in one subject area. But again, in terms of this whole school approach we've developed, it's really cutting across all subject areas, across all topics, across all weeks of school. And it's a reflection of how we contextualize our lessons, which are normally not, right? So these lessons are usually just sort of random word problems in mathematics, but why not be more intentional with our teaching and use examples that we want to normalize with our young generation? So thank you again, Teacher Sheena. And now I'm so honored to introduce two of our bright students. So we have Jello Cruz and Liz Licardo. So first of all, we'll hear from Jello Cruz about his experiences working with, experiences, not just really for the SDGs, but experiences to help the community integrated in academics. So Jello, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Jello V. Cruz, a 17-year-old senior high school ambassador from the International School for Better Beginnings. 2021 was the year when we started to incorporate the UN SDGs in our curriculum, which further entails that our school became an instrument for equanimity and change. Starting with one of the campaigns that I administered in the past, which is Second Chances Lucena, Philippines, inclined with SDGs number 8, decent work and economic growth, 10, reduced inequalities, and number 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Predominantly, a handful of people deprived of liberty experience alienation, incommensurate treatment, and above all, being looked down upon by society. Be that as it may, our goal remained succinct. We've organized different online events to boost their morale and keep their heads strong and high. But most importantly, this is also a way for us to show how grateful we are for their ceaseless love and support for our cause. But this leads us to one of the events that really emboldened me into who I am today. So we've coordinated with a jail district that were known for their handcrafted products. So they did paint on bamboo coin banks and sold them to make ends meet. And I can definitely tell you that words can never truly express how much exultation I felt seeing them smile. Having felt the need to start over again and use their creative ingenuities as a tool for livelihood, it was amazing. Oh, and another campaign that I would like to point out is the Youth for Coast Philippines, which aims to eradicate the use of harmful waste such as plastics, but also to conserve and protect our bodies of water and their biodiversity. Unfortunately, due to some COVID-19 restrictions, we had little to no control over what we can or can't do. However, my co-ambassador here today would like to share an experience in their field of work.
Hello everyone, good day. I am Miss Ricardo. I am 15 years old and I'm a grade 10 student from the International School of Better Beginnings. So to continue what Kuya Jella said, me and my batchmates also handled the Youth for Coast campaign. The Youth for Coast involves goals number 3, 6, 13, and 14. As Kuya Jella said earlier, Youth for Coast Philippines aims to eradicate the use of harmful waste and conserve our bodies of water. It also aims to make sure that the communities and animals living near the coastal areas have access to clean and unpolluted water. Our batch was one of the first to conduct expeditions outside of our school, where we encouraged our schoolmates and our community to join our coastal cleanups, where we got to go to the beach to clear it up from trash and harmful waste. This was definitely a very fun experience because we got to bond together with our schoolmates and make a good impact on our community. We also learned a lot from the cleanup because our teachers made sure to connect our school lessons to our campaign. One activity in particular was a math activity where we had to measure a space that we had to clean up. And from there, we had to count how many trash we collected from the space we measured. We also had an online event to celebrate World Water Day, where we highlighted the importance of having fresh and unpolluted waters. The event revolves around topics related to clean water, sanitation, hygiene, or WASH, which are connected to the objectives of rule number 6. Through this event, we gained abundant knowledge from our dearest guest speaker, Ms. Janica Dizon, where she talked about important topics and issues about water in our country and how we can make solutions for them. So aside from our batch campaign, we also got to apply the SDGs and extracurricular activities. For me, I have the Wellness Council, where I'm currently sitting as the secretary. One of my favorite events to hold is World Mental Health Awareness Month. This event holds a special place in my heart because mental health problems can be recognized, and you can also reach out to those who are struggling mentally. As for the UN SDG for the Wellness Council, we support goal number 3, good health and well-being. The most memorable activity for me was when we held an online event with the theme, "Are you okay? Understanding mental health in challenging times." We invited multiple guest speakers for this event, where they talked about their personal experiences and how to cope when you're struggling with your own mental health. So I guess this was a big learning experience where I get to use my skills and broaden my mind. I guess that's all from my part. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Teacher Sheena, Jello, and Liz. And to wrap up our presentation time, we just wanted to explain that these are just 2 students. This is just 1 teacher. This is just 1 subject that is represented across an entire school. And across the entire school, in just 1 academic year, on average, we impact 7,000 people in our community outside of our school, achieving or targeting all 17 SDGs collectively. And this program has been awarded and recognized both regionally and internationally, including last year's Transforming Education Summit. And we really realized the value of needing to give capacity to teachers to empower young people to make and take local actions in the community. And my final slide is just our next steps. Our next steps, realizing that we've had proof of concept of the program, we're now ready to, share what we're doing here at our school. So if you're a school or teacher or educator or policymaker who is interested to your program, here's a QR code, or feel free to email me about how we can build our network of schools who champion, global change making and ESG. So thank you so much for your time, and all the best.
Thank you very much, Ilan. Sir Ilan, Teacher Sheena, Robert, Angelo, and Mary Liz. Probably I say thank you and congratulations, ambassadors. Very, very well felt, I would say, how you embrace SDG as an approach at the school level. Very impressive, in my opinion. A global audience, that is a very impressive presentation of Ilan and team. And we would like to thank them because in their presentation, we saw various initiatives at the school level, emphasizing specific aspects of SDGs, including what teacher Sheena shared on student assessments. Ilan and friends call them SDG-centered approach. Very good example. And of course, Ilan shared with us the work of the youth at the international level and with his active leadership in supporting transformative education, not only in his schools, but internationally. Good job, Ilan. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, a global audience, I would like to give the chance for you all, and I open the Q&A. We have 10 to 15 minutes for this Q&A, and probably we'll have a brief summary at the end. Guess what? Since yesterday, we have been receiving questions and feedback. Somebody actually said, I'm so excited for the session tomorrow and to get to know more ideas on how to become a more effective teacher. Thank you for that interest. And Priyanut and Ilan, I guess Margaret has to be offline for now, but Priyanut is with us, and Ilan and friends. We have questions from our global audience, and we'd like to present them to you. Probably let's start with the first one on the screen. To our YouTube watchers, audience, as well as those that who could access this session, the first question is this, and let me just read through. The second speaker, Miss Margaret, connected SEP with SDG 4.7, and the first speaker, Dr. Priyanut, presented the importance of SEP in economy, environment, society, and culture. There are two questions here that are very much related. Can SEP address all the 17 SDGs? Can it be connected to all those goals? May I request Dr. Priyanut please to kindly address the question, and Ilan will follow next.
Thank you so much, our moderator. I think I would like to very briefly answer the question. Well, first of all, I would like everyone to see SEP, SEP as a means, a method, a road to achieve the SDGs, which is the goals, the ends. You see, it's the means to achieve the ends. So SEP, of course, yes, it can address all the 17 SDGs, but not at just by one, project or, one singular action or something, right? I have been working with some school, on, bullying in school. You may wonder, but in Thailand, there are a lot of, verbal bullying or even, action bullying, right? So that's about SDG number 16, right? Peaceful, environment to enable, learning activities, right? So students are trained to think, if someone doing this to you, what would you think? How do you feel? So it's about learning about reasonableness before they do any actions. So everything for SEP coming back for each individual, especially, teachers and students, to think before they act, to be prudent, before they put anything into actions or verbally actions. So, I just give a very difficult examples way to integrate SEP, into achieving the SDGs, right? I just taking SDG number 16, which is, not quite, talking. Yes, we talk about, biodiversity, climate action. There are a lot of actions, and I just would like to congratulate, Ilan, that, your school just did a wonderful work, and I think they can share, their experiences, with high schools who have done this a lot too. And I think this is just amazing for this workshop for we to be able to share. So I answer our moderator in a very not so brief now that yes, SEP is a framework of thinking. It's a means to achieve the SDGs. Thank you.
Very sharp ka dyan. Framework of thinking to achieve SDGs. We will remember that very clearly. Thank you ka. Ilan, would you like to share some of your thoughts on this question?
Yes, and thank you for the kind words, Dr. Priyanut. But I think I'll say the same thing. I'll try to be brief with my answer, and hopefully I also follow what I say. But what I wanted to say was I completely agree with Dr. Priyanut in that we're trying to mold the person's values or attributes or their philosophy of being, and that the type of person you are inevitably encounters different kinds of situations, and the person that you are makes you decide how to react in those different types of situations. So whether SEP can address all 17 SDGs, 100% yes, because a good person will support gender equality, or a good person will support climate action. So no matter what problem you're faced with or a problem that you're trying to tackle, a person who is good or who has the values of a person filled with integrity will always choose to help or to take action. So the answer is definitely yes to this question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Friends, Ilan is also very affirmative about the response that yes, indeed, it is across all SDGs. Thank you, Ilan. Thank you, Dr. Priyanut. Shall we have question 2, Kevin? Thanks. Oh, this is another question, and let me read it for you in my knowledge. SDGs came with specific measures of assessment. For SEP, is there a way to determine if a school activity or community project complies with SEP? I believe this question is for Dr. Priyanut Ka.
Can I share my screen, please? I just have some tools that may be okay. Thank you so much. Okay. Right. Oops, sorry. Okay. I mentioned about using SEP. Sorry. Okay. You see, this is a way of cultivating the mindset, right? We talk about sustainable lifestyles, which is the way we act. We talk about goals, which is what we are going to achieve. But before all of this, it has to start from how we think and how we think we are going to, tackle these activities or projects, right? So decisions always have to make according to virtues and knowledge. Okay, I won't go through this 2, 3, 4 again, but I would like to show some of the tools that we have. Okay, in schools, like, we have many learning lessons that we integrated SEP into, but okay, in Thailand, we have this model that I developed with my team. We call it, QPA. To cultivate the mindset, we always have to start with questions, why do you want to do this? Why do you like this project? Why are you going to participate in this one? Questions, or what are you going to use? What kind of knowledge do we need? So we have a set of questions that teachers always ask students, let them think before they do. This is SEP mindset, right? And before even doing anything, train students to plan before they do. They plan based on, 2, 3, 4. Is it, we are appropriately use our resources within our means, or, do we have a reasonable plan to achieve this within a reasonable time or something like that? And are we prepared for any changes? Or some of the say we plan to go out to go to the near forest, to learn about biodiversity. But if it's gonna rain, how this, the science teacher is going to change, that lesson plan, something like that, has to be put in all the time. They put into action. But after action, it is the most important thing that teachers and students coming back to reflect upon what they have done, either it's successful or failure. But why? School education is about learning. Learning from failure is not, as bad at all. It's as good as learning from success as well. So reflective learning is very important. So this is a cycle of learning to cultivate the mindset. We call it QPA. And I would like to show again, I have tools, and I will put this into the chat box. This is a worksheet. Schools, teachers, principals always use this worksheet, right? So a team of teachers or students, they can look at, maybe they take one activities, right? And then they say, what kind of knowledge that they need to do this action activities, right? And what virtues or ethics that will lead to success, to remind themselves that, okay, we have to be patient, we have to united, we have to be honest, something like that. So, take some of the three most important virtues to make this project successful. Moderation, there's a questions about, how should we consider the, the time, the readiness of the team, the place that we should do, the resource that we have, the budget, the team cooperation. Think about the suitable conditions, right? Reasonableness, why we do this, what would we expect to do this? It's all about, learning through thinking, planning. Then it's the way to shape the mindset, you see? And then resilience, right? Anticipating. If this gonna happen as we expect, do we have plan B, plan C, backup plan, something like that, right? And then, imagine the outcomes of these activities. Is it gonna be, making the material or economy, progressing or deteriorating? How about the society part? Do we incorporate this caring and sharing within our, projects? Is in the cost our, disunite in our team or in schools? Think about the results in the terms of balanced development. How about the culture? Are we integrating our local wisdom or our cultural heritage into our activities or environment? What will be the impact? So this set, of questions are what we in Thailand used to train, even public officers, teachers, students, to use as a template before they prepare to do anything. And this is how we integrate SEP into actions, in a very, I would say, simplified way that we do in Thailand. There are more very difficult and more not simple like this, right? But I think for school, this is enough. So thank you for allowing me to share this. I'll put this into the chat box so that, our staff can put it, share it through YouTube later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ajahn. Thank you for the tools, especially for the worksheet, like a planning board for any activity we want to do that is SEP compliance, if I could use that term. Thank you. That's very useful. And we take note of that tool that we could share to all our participants this afternoon. May I proceed with question 3? It seems this is directly addressed for Mr. Ilan. Thank you for sharing the activities of your school in the Philippines, Mr. Ilan. Does that mean your school is already using the SEP philosophy? How does it differ from the SEP mindset, or are they the same? Ilan, please.
Thank you, Abigail. So I will, of course, be honest, and I will say that when we first, designed and created and implemented this program, I was not familiar, unfortunately, with the SEP philosophy. However, I'm honestly very grateful to have learned about the SEP philosophy through this entire experience, because the answer is yes. We didn't know we were practicing SEP, but we were practicing SEP. And there are many, many similarities, and I cannot really think of the differences. I can only see similarities between what we've done and the way our teachers teach. and SEP. And I think I have a few examples. So one is in thanks to Dr. Priyanut's like very nicely designed, like very easy to read framework for SEP. So thank you, Dr. Priyanut. But what I noticed there was at the heart or at the start of everything, you look at attributes and ethics. And again, for us, we started the question of how do we improve education systems from the standpoint of that. We wanted to change the way people, their virtues, we wanted to change their values, we wanted to change their ethics, because if you change that, everything else follows, right? The way that they behave in the world, the way that they behave at home, that all changes. If you just change that one, like if you think of dominoes, that first domino. And what I really thought was almost exactly the same as what we're practicing here at our school, ISBB, is that it's wonderful that a person is a good person, but for us, it's important to give young people or give students more than just virtues. You have to give them the skills and the knowledge as well to actually, take those actions, take those next steps. So what do they do with those virtues, or what do they do with those values? They need to actually apply them. And someone who is a good person may not actually be able to make much of a change or positive change in the world, but someone who is a good person, who is trained, equipped, and who has the knowledge about certain, mathematical experiences or about certain scientific concepts, that person who is able to communicate more, to practice critical thinking, is actually, is going to make a way more massive systemic change in the community or in the world. So we want to combine this idea of, someone who's benevolent, but someone who's also smart and equipped, right? So we want to combine a good person with a smart person, essentially. So I really found that existed exactly in the SEP framework. Obviously, the way that SEP easily lends itself to the SDGs and how our program also intentionally leads towards the SDGs is a very, it's a common ground as well for SEP and our program, especially about how we use certain values to, achieve the triple bottom line, as Ms. Margaret said, or, people, planet, and profit, and seeing that those are all interconnected, social responsibility and, the interconnectedness of human society and the environment. Like these issues are so prevalent in SEP and so prevalent in the way we teach ESD. So I think the last thing I'll say about this is it's so important that we change the way people think and change people's virtues and change people's mindsets, because what we've learned from our experiences, and that's, I think, something we can offer to this conversation, is experience. What we have seen from experience is that the act of changing the mindset of a student ripples outwards. So what we've seen is, while we do, teach children and students, that teaching influences their families, right? So we even have, students who sort of question, the decisions of maybe their parents on, whether this choice of product is better than this choice of product when they go shopping for groceries every week, right? Or an easy example is, it was very quick. Our school shifted very quick. Our entire, all of the families within our school sort of shifted very quick from plastic toothbrushes to bamboo toothbrushes. That's just one quick example of how, the way we influence students' minds also ripples outwards to the families. But because the students are doing so much work with the community itself is also learning so much about the SDGs through those interactions. So those communities who normally practice, whatever is cheaper, whatever is faster, what isn't sustainable, they're also shifting their lifestyles. They're also shifting their mindsets. So I think this kind of work, the reason we need to prioritize, transforming education, the reason we have to invest in it, the reason we have to retrain reskill, equip teachers is it's massive. What the impact and what the change is that we're going to create in our society. Thank you.
Much, Ilan. Thank you. And I would say that what Ilan has said, and even the second question, and what Dr. Priyanut has shared with us, this is really a proof that SDG and the SEP are interlinked. And this is beautiful. What we have just discussed in the last 10 minutes in this Q&A has wrapped up everything about the past an hour and a half. And I like how it went like that. So I have no more responsibility to summarize. So this SEP and SDG, they are meant to be. And again, this is wonderful. Jan Priyanut and Ilan, I would like to just mention that there are many questions that have been coming in since the beginning, feedback. While we do not have time to go through them, let me just quickly go through some of the questions without giving outright answers. Someone in Nepal said, as a global citizen and teacher myself, I want to know what is the minimum standard of this goal, the SDG and SEP, to be considered achieved or successful. For SEP, Jan Priyanut addressed that in the first and second questions. But probably for SDG, while we do not have Margaret, literatures are available online. But we are happy to provide more detailed response on this from our colleague in Nepal. Thank you. Someone anonymous said, I'd like to use SEP in our community, but how do I effectively use it? My dear, this was answered by Dr. Priyanut some minutes ago. So I think you've got your answers. Somebody said, how do you incorporate, or how did you incorporate, or how did you motivate your government to include SEP to your national agenda? And then a question, how can we partner with you on SEP initiatives and activities as a state university? What are your suggestions on how we can begin incorporating SEP to our institutional agenda? Beautiful. We will respond on these questions, Jan Priyanut, probably separately, but this is very promising, and it seems that there is huge interest on how SEP could be integrated at different levels and how to work with us. Probably two things: continue communicating with us, and the virtual series, learning series, is going to continue on SEP and SDG. And of course, there are many other opportunities. We will keep in touch with you. With that, friends, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to thank once again our speakers, Dr. Priyanut, Ilan, Margarete, for sharing with us their valuable time, their knowledge, and their experiences. Mind you, I also learned a lot this afternoon, and I guess my colleagues feel the same. Indeed, the world is changing. We need to catch up with it. The SDGs, the goals, the SEP, the mindset, are important and supportive elements to achieve our common objective, and that is sustainable development. So thank you, global audience and speakers. It has been lovely. And we'd like to see you in the next episode of the SEAMEO SEPS virtual learning series. Please stand by for some announcement from Kevin. Thank you, Ka.
Thank you very much, Abigail, and our honorable speakers, for a very insightful knowledge and impressive session from you guys. And now we have learned more and had a better understanding about SEP and how to link with the SDGs, especially in the practice for education context toward a sustainability in our region or global context. So next, may I announce the upcoming activities from SEAMEO SEPS. First, we would like to invite the schools, teachers, and students to join our West Hero Awards. and share the best practices, classroom activities, and ideas regarding waste management programs in the SEAMEO, in the Southeast Asian Waste Hero Award. You can scan the QR code, which is projected in the screen, to see more information about our campaign. So this is very interesting. And next, since this is the first episode of our webinar series, so we will exactly continue with our next episode on the climate action and world heritage, which will be organized on 27 September 2023 from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Bangkok time for the participants who are interested in learning with this topic. So you can scan the QR code for the pre-registration and save your date for the upcoming learning series. And the next, for the e-certificate, you can follow us on the presented guidelines to get your e-certificate. And please complete an evaluation form and fill up the validation. And please ensure that your name is spelled correctly. You just follow all of the 4 steps, which is projected in our screen. And ladies and gentlemen, last but not least, you can visit our social media and website for the up-to-date information and upcoming activity at www.SEMEO-SEPS or SEPS, SEMEOSEPS.org, or Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram by searching SEMEO SEPS. And ladies and gentlemen, goodbye for today. And we hope you have learned a lot from today's session. And hopefully we will see you again in the next virtual learning series. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, our speakers. Thank you, Abigail. Thank you, our technical team. Thank you, SEMEO SEPS, for organizing this very wonderful webinar series. And we hope to see you in the next activity. And yeah, save your date for the next episode of our learning series. Goodbye for now. สวัสดีครับ